Service Lines community. How y'all doing today? Alongside of me, Brother Doug. What's up, man?
Good morning, Zach. No, this theme song hit me good today. I'm telling you,
It's good Monday.
it is a good Monday. I think the last two nights I've been like working in my prayers. Sleeping time, your dreams. You ever do that? Where you just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like, then you wake up and you're like, damn, I'm exhausted. But I think I'm kind of amped about things about to step up. I think the business is start to get busier and got some ideas in the works. So I think I'm amped. Can't tell with this face, right?
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Morning, Adam. Morning, Jose. How are you guys this morning? Good to see you. Yeah, I find myself often working in my sleep. It's unfortunate. I'd rather be sleeping in my sleep or planning in my sleep, but
That's right.
end up working in my sleep. So
That's it. Yep. I think I woke up to lightning and thunder last night, and it was, and I'm like, oh man, I hope I get another couple hours of sleep. It was only 11. I'm like, what the heck? When did I fall asleep? And I need to go back to sleep and go back to work in my dreams. Sheesh. But anyway, I'm
I,
I'm chomping at the bit. I was kind of bummed that Friday came because we had some momentum going and some things happening and people text that I'm interviewing and
love
just
it.
want answers and no direction. So yeah, I'm good to go.
Love it, man. Love it. Yeah, I'm excited about this topic. Measuring things, right? Like we've probably talked about this a bunch before, but we'll talk about it again because it is important.
Yeah,
Um, you don't know where you're going, or it's hard to know where you're going if you can't figure out where you've been, right?
Mhm.
You don't know how to make those adjustments along the way. So it is a principle that has taken me some time to learn. And I feel like it's a continual learning process, don't you? Like you're
Absolutely.
continually, yeah.
I mean, I'm coming from a company that's been around a long time, and when I came to Action in '93, I
Good morning. How are things in Connecticut? It's where the first phone book was published, apparently.
no kidding. I'll have to let the owner of Action know because he loved advertising in the phone book, his creative side. Um, well, I know what we were talking about. Oh, being working at a company here so long, I took the habit and the ritual of weekly posting of technicians' numbers, how many calls they did, what the average per call was, the revenue that they brought in for the week, and their walk-in callback rate. And Action Appliance has done that number um, ever since 1995, 98. And so we kind of have some Dead Sea Scroll numbers, like they're not in the current system. They're in my emails, or I have some in the file over here from the 90s. It's just kind of cool to look back on the archive and you can really see how much the industry's changed, right? Because you have the era of the BSWM. You know what that era is? That's before shit was made, right? This is when they made good appliances, and you would be able to put in your truck all the parts for the Maytag washer, and you could get first call completes, and people kept the machines, right? And so yeah, then there's been different eras. We've been through the COVID era, right? So pre-COVID, the COVID era, and I think we're now moving into the post-COVID era. And so numbers are changing, numbers are looking different, numbers are affected by certain things that go on, and then trends happen. So I love all the numbers we have.
Well, so were you a technician? And I'm just messing with you here. In the 70s and 80s, you missed that era, right?
Is Saul on here? Is
Just
that
mess.
Saul?
No, so I brought that up because you talk about the changes, right?
Yeah,
So the person that I bought the company from, Floyd, started in '77. He goes, dude, when I first started, you carry like two fans, one heater,
that's
a
right.
set of coils,
Yeah,
and one element, and you could literally fix every machine on the market. And
yeah,
and it was just like mind blowing to understand that you could intermix all this stuff back and forth, and it didn't
absolutely. Yeah,
matter. Machines were just so simple.
yeah. No, it was very much like that for sure.
I'm curious how much those Dead Sea Scroll numbers, going into the topic of the day, how much do those Dead Sea Scroll numbers like play? to what you do today? Do they even have any effect on it? Or did they kind of lay the groundwork for the way that you're doing things
It,
today?
de- it, de- it depends on the way you're looking at it. So, like the average amount of calls that we were doing in the early '90s into the late '90s was 10 to 14 calls a day,
Right.
depending who you were as a technician. We can't do 10 to 14 today. I can remember, thanks to Asti and knowing your numbers and having them on in the front of your mind, and then you go and you meet people and you network and you start to hear companies going, "Well, I do about 8 with my guys," and
Right.
then you go back home and you're like, "Are we mean?
And
Are we mean people?"
that
And,
number
and
just keeps going
and it
down.
does, right? This last ASTI, 6 to 8, 5 to 7. It's like, whoa, right? And so I could be the old guy and just go, that's not the way it was, and but we have to be realistic about things.
Or you could be the customer. And before we get too far off, you want to pray us in?
Sure. Lord God, it's a new week and it's springtime and April showers bring pilgrims. We just found that out here in Connecticut, Lord. So, God, as spring comes and buds and flowers happen, we just pray that our hope stay afresh and new, like the seasons changing. Lord, we pray that you give us direction and peace and comfort. And Lord, when we stumble, when we fall, when we get nervous, please help us come to you. Lord, help us be a blessing to our customers, our employees, our family, and our neighbors. Help us have balance in our lives, putting you first and our family second, and work. Lord, we know that we can do things all through you. And today, Lord, I lift up Zach to you. I thank you for his friendship. I thank you for his heart for the community, his willingness to support, encourage, give advice, and be a great listener. So, God, we are all blessed to know Zach, and we thank you that you made him. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So, um, like those numbers just keep going down, right? And it's our job to educate customers. You said you could be the curmudgeon old guy, but let's think of this from the customer perspective. How many times have we heard from customers, well, it shouldn't cost that. It shouldn't cost that. How can it cost? Because my technician can only do 6 calls a day because it takes 3 hours to diagnose your machine. Like if you don't have those numbers, if you don't understand the as we talked in the pre-roll, like what machines are gonna pose the biggest problem, you don't know how to adjust the money that you're charging a customer, and you don't know how to do it in a fair manner. I we heard it. I forget which class or if it was on a live stream or what, but talking about how some of the foreign companies think, and so they think you can do 50 calls a day. Well, yeah, that works in Taiwan when you're going up and down an elevator all day, and that's all you're doing, or Korea where you're going up and down an elevator all day.
Yeah.
And your parts depot is in the basement, and they have a parts runner that can run across the street to the factory and go, hey, give me the part.
Yeah.
Like you don't
Yeah.
have any delay. You don't have any shipping. It doesn't have to come overseas, anything. So, yeah, sure. You can do 50 calls a day if you're riding an elevator all day. But if you're driving 3 hours to your next call, that's not reality, right?
No, and you have to know your numbers so well that you can put an exception aside. You don't want to make a change in your business for something that only happens once in a while. But when you know your numbers, and what you're always looking for in measuring is, do you give your technicians the time to be excellent and to give the customer the kind of service that's going to make them say, I need to call you guys back. I want you guys back. And so if you don't deliver that, and you can't deliver that all the time, but you strive for that. And so if your guys are saying you don't give me the time, then you have to give them the time. And you it's an experiment. And then you gotta like hold them accountable after you've given them that time. And so it might be that our company has to grow by 4 or 5 techs in the next 5 years to do the work that we're currently doing now or barely able to keep up with. So It's knowing your numbers and then be willing to make a change, but don't make too many at once so that you can measure its success or failure and try to come up with something new. But I guess it would be weird for me to think as an old guy that it's going to stay the same as it once was, right? I'd look at my schedule and I'd go two couplers, a Whirlpool lid switch, Whirlpool side by side refrigerator clicking, that's a relay. Now it's, oh man, I hope I can get cell coverage so I can get my tech sheet so I can go into diagnostic mode. Things are different. It is what it is, you know.
Let's talk about that little bit of a transition. And we keep saying know your numbers. Well, how are you supposed to know them? Well, you got to track them somewhere, whether it's in a software, on a spreadsheet. I don't care how you do it. You got to track it. But let's talk about that transition from the direct drive models into the next brand or the next iteration of that wonderful machine that you went from like 15 minutes of diagnosis to now it's like 2 hours because even the engineers don't know what their machine is doing. It takes them.
That's right.
I feel like even now they're just kind of figuring it out and they're already on to their next iteration of that machine. So,
That's right. That's
like
right.
you have to be conscious of that. When we started, we're sending guys out and we're going, yeah, 8, 9, 10 calls. It shouldn't be a big deal. And you run into that particular machine with 6 lights across the top, and it's like a $300 machine that takes 2 hours to diagnose, and all of a sudden that just puts like a whole kink
Yeah,
in what you're doing. And you have to
that's right.
understand that. You have to really measure that. You got Saul picking on you here, buddy, talking about rebuilding WH3838 GE transmissions. I don't even know what that is, Saul. So that makes you
Yeah,
old,
yeah.
brother. Just firing it back.
Yeah, maybe when you were 16, Saul, when we shipped them back to Marcone, you were the guy rebuilding them, but I never rebuilt those transmissions.
353. I don't even know
Oh
what
my!
that one
Oh,
is.
look at Saul! Look at Saul showing off. That's the Whirlpool 3-port pump right there. Yep, I can't
Ah,
remember my daughter's cell phone number, but I know and remember the belt-driven Whirlpool pump. It's in there, along with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Well,
um,
I think especially if you're in charge of one person,
hmm,
once you're an owner and you have one employee or you have 30 employees, the pressure is the same. You can't let them down. You gotta set them up for success and you gotta hold them accountable. And knowing those numbers are pretty important, you know. So
what was it harder when it was just you and Jay? Like when it was just you guys just like trying to figure this out? Like,
I think maybe the hardest time was when we didn't have a need for managers.
hmm,
Because it was just me and Jay and then another guy, and you just did everything as a tech, which nowadays, when a tech comes on board, sometimes people who have been here a while will be like, what does that new guy think, that we're here to hand serve them hand and foot? And I'm like, well, yeah, kind of. That's why I have a service manager, two service managers, a parts manager, an office manager, an HR person, an IT person. It looks like we're a business set up to serve them, right? And they're like, yeah, but that's not how we used to do it. I know, but it's changed. But we still don't want to lose that independent, like,
hmm.
let me take charge of the call. I was talking to you about the pre-roll, this book called The Raving Fan. And, as a
Love that
company,
book.
yeah, as a company trying to create customers that become raving fans, how
Yeah.
do you get employees, especially when you get a little bit bigger, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys, 10 guys? We have 28 people. How do you get them to treat it like it's their own business? It's a fun mission, and part of it is, again, knowing your numbers. It always goes back to knowing your numbers and the ability on average of what an employee can do. Knowing your numbers can help you make sure that your rock stars get treated like
Hmm.
rock stars and get all the benefits that you can offer them, as well as not having the right person in the company. Those numbers help you with confidence go to them and say, I'm sorry, we've tried, we're going to have to let you go. You can't base it on feelings, you got to base it off of numbers.
Did you guys start measuring when you were 1, 2, 3 guys, or were you
Yeah,
just
like
like,
I said, I came from a very large company, and once it was after it became more than just Jay and I said, hey, look at this is This is a mimeograph. It wasn't even a photocopy of our tech stats.
Hmm.
And so I literally have tech stats going all the way back to 2009 because I took it from a company in the mid 90s. Now I don't know. We used to use Nextel pagers. You guys
Hmm.
remember? So
Beep,
pagers.
beep.
So we used to, yep, and we used to page the stats out every day. So there was no record for those years.
Hmm.
But what's crazy is in 2008, 9, and 10, guys like me and a couple others, we were doing $1,200 to $2,000 a day in revenue, which is mind blowing because we're not doing that now.
Hmm.
So it just goes to show how much has changed in an era when you're doing 12 to 15 calls a day, opposed to now you're doing 8, and then you've got a part order, 5 or 6 out of the 10, maybe not even that many, because you're walking 3 out of 10, you're ordering 3, and you're completing 2. Very different numbers, very different times.
He's still got his Nokia flip. That thing will live till the end of time. Like the Nokia brick. Oh, those were great phones. No, but you have to know your numbers, and that was my whole point in bringing that up, Doug. Is that while you're 1, 2, 3 men, you better be tracking. You better be tracking, because if your goal is to grow beyond that, you have no baseline if you don't know where you're coming from, if you're not measuring it. I mean, listen, everything gets measured, right? In life, in business, it all gets measured. We were talking in the pre-roll, and one of the cool things, and my sales commissions came in, and it represented a lot of months of hard work, and I decided to treat myself after checking in with the wife first.
Yeah.
Check in with the wife first. But something that I've wanted for 13 years, I bought a 3D printer. Okay. So there's a point to this story. This little benchy guy here, right? Like, it's a way to measure how your printer is doing. Are your settings correct? Do you need to make a small adjustment? Are things in line? Are you using the right whatever? So everything gets measured. And you don't know how to make those small adjustments. Trust me, small adjustments, not these big crazy course corrections, because that's how you end up in a ditch, right?
Yeah.
But you can make small adjustments if you've been tracking stuff, no matter where you are, right?
Yeah.
Next week we'll be talking about health, and you got to measure everything in health.
Mm-hmm.
BMI, your heart rate, different things like that, right? Like, you don't know how to make those pivots if you don't measure it.
Again, always give you the credit for me stretching and growing my brain with some reading over the last year or so, maybe longer than a year now. Thank you so much for that, Zach. Part of me still, when I read some of these books that people are Googling over and getting all excited, I'm like, dude, this is normal life stuff. It's someone writing it in a book, but it's what inspires you to actually do what you're not doing, which you're supposed to do. Like Noom, the weight loss app. I did it one time, and there was no brilliance behind it. It was get up every day and weigh yourself every single day. Put it in the app. Read something that's going to teach you about food and habits in the brain, right? And then track your food. Hold yourself accountable. Oh, you have a coach that you can message with, and you have a group you can hang out with. None of it there's no rocket science there, man. That's just putting it in one place. And I lost like 35 pounds. So, now I've gained some of it back. I've been weighing myself every day. And now I'm noticing changes. Just being aware of who you are and what you're doing is pretty important. But I typically like to put my head in the sand, to be honest with you, Zach, especially when it comes to money. We talked about money last week. Man, that can be overwhelming. But once you start to develop good habits and you start tracking some real basic things, it isn't so scary to think about making the next steps. I remember setting a goal in 2021, post COVID, right, or middle of COVID. Like, that's it. I'm hiring 2 new guys from scratch. Man, I thought that I was going to be, I felt like that was skydiving. I felt like I was going to jump off a cliff and try this thing that could really do us in, or it could have amazing effects. Well, it had great effects. It wasn't amazing. It wasn't like as seen on TV amazing. And so now I think for the summer, I need four. I need 4 more techs so that I can continue to be a same day, next day company. And it doesn't seem that overwhelming. It's literally double what I crap my pants about 2 years ago. I don't know if I'm going to hit it, but you go for it. Know your numbers and know what you're able to do and recognize it and go for it and see what happens. Right.
We were talking about that in the pre. Like, so I'm in a position where I'm starting to measure. We have a sales guy out there, and we're measuring what the average sale is. We're measuring what Matt and I were doing as we were selling stuff. And then we're looking at the other end of that. How long does it take the teams to install this stuff? And then what is that variable? So if we can go out and we can be in, a 900 square foot house or 1,000 square foot house and still be just as profitable as stretching this out across 4 days and stretching out an install team that long, but we can fit 3 jobs in instead of 1 job, or vice versa. Is it more profitable? We don't know
See,
until
that's
we
the
begin to track the numbers.
when you started talking about it, I was getting excited. I was like, hold on, this is cool. I wonder which is which, is a 1 day project for 10,000 better or worse than a 3 day project for 40,000, or how many more jobs can you fit? Obviously you guys might not have those numbers. So
Right.
you purchased online at Amazon your first Dead Sea Scroll blank, and you'll start to track the numbers, right?
Doug, you hate books, but you should totally write one about the evolution of the appliance industry.
I think he's making fun of my age again there. I'm pretty sure he's calling me Moses, but I'm booking a flight to Miami. I got to take care of this Saul thing. So
Never mind
I love you,
the
Saul.
sunshine. Never mind the sunshine down there. That's not why Doug's
Yeah,
going at all.
yeah, it won't be for any spicy food either.
Yeah. No, but yeah, beginning to set those up. And if you're using like House Call Pro or Workies or whatever, like if you're using any of these job management, like you have this detailed reporting built in. And if you're
Yeah.
not checking those reports daily, weekly, monthly, for the love of God, don't go beyond monthly. Weekly and daily is actually better if you want to grow at any speed.
Right.
It's easier to make those pivots when they're small instead of a month. It's kind of scaled out. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but there's no excuse to not track that. There's no excuse to not begin to look at that, because you have it right at your fingertips. We've had to make a pivot because the tracking that we had, the flooring industry's 20, 30 years behind everyone else with their software. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we finally have a software that allows us to track a little bit more closely because we can see when the guys are finishing the jobs. We can
Right.
see how long they're taking. We can see how long it goes from the call coming in all the way to the completion of the call. So we can track that whole process and we can make the small pivots that we need to make the bigger impact.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's a story that was shared, book, podcast, whatever. But it takes a small movement to move a big ship. Like one small adjustment can change the entire trajectory across the lifespan. So if you're thinking now is your 1 or 2 man show and you start to make these small pivots, look out 5-10 years down the road, right? And you can see that major shift in the course of where you are.
Yeah.
Doug, can you reverse engineer backwards to the beginning with you and Jay? Like, can you see those small pivots now making this wide swing in the company, or am I just making this up?
No, it's very true because when you are two, three, and four guys, you can make a change pretty quickly, and
Hmm.
they all they're all in the building. You can look them in the eyes and say, "Hey, we're doing this now." And but when you have a team that's remote, it does take a little bit of time, and you have to prepare well to communicate the change. Because if you're looking at your numbers and you're suggesting a change, and you don't have to, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be communicated very well and thought out well. Everyone's going to buy it. Most people are going to buy in and make that change, and then you're going to have to nag the rest of the guys, and then
Hmm.
you get going down that road. Can you imagine if you hastily didn't know your numbers well and you had to revert back or take a sharper turn? It just takes a lot longer as you get a little bit bigger to do it. But it's huge. It's huge for us to go from 10 to 12 calls a day. That was in like 2018, and seeing a couple people go, no thanks, I'm gonna leave now. You're being unreasonable, and hearing other numbers. And by the way, that's something that we haven't talked about yet. Knowing your numbers well is great, but then you need to meet with your peers. You need to
Hmm.
meet with other companies, and then it isn't easy because numbers don't always match up. They're an all warranty company. I'm an all COD company. They're in the Midwest. They're down south. I'm in New England. You kind of have to rummage through those things. And so for us to make a change, to say we're going to give the technician more time because appliances have evolved and are a little bit harder, I had to hire 3 and 4 more techs, which means overhead went up and
Hmm.
each tech's revenue went down a little bit. But that was the course change that we had to make. And it was pretty scary to add expense, 3 extra vans, three
Hmm.
extra insurance policies, 3 extra payroll taxes and benefits, where we used to get it. But we wouldn't have kept our staff if we kept doing the 10 to 14 with our head in the sand, right?
And
So,
I feel like a lot of companies do that. They put their head in the sands and this is the way it was. And this is how it should be. And we watch those companies fail. It's not just small businesses. There's big businesses that have done the same thing. I mean, that Bed Bath and Beyond, they're in the middle of bankruptcy right now, right? Like, and the reality is they said, no, this is the way that we've always done it, and this is the way we're always going to do it.
mm,
How's that working for you? Like, and you're talking a company that has more metrics than, I mean,
I
there
know.
had to be a ton of bean counters there going, guys, like throwing up red flags, or maybe they didn't. Maybe they had a culture where there wasn't that feedback loop. I don't know,
Hard
but
to
the
believe.
reality is, it doesn't matter what size company you are
Right.
if you're not tracking the metrics and then taking action, right? Because measuring is only a piece of this. You
Mhm.
can measure all day long. I can sit there and measure the walls, but nothing's going to get built if I don't start swinging the hammer, you
Being
know?
intentional is pretty critical. Looking back, just kind of roughly thinking from 93 when I came on and it was just Jay and then me, we went up to 3 to 4, down to 2, up to 5, down to 3. I think we did that whole 2 to 5 from 93 to 2007, 2009,
Hmm.
just never really growing, but doing good. We were never not profitable, but never
Right.
really growing until you then became intentional with knowing your numbers and setting goals, and looking for opportunity and having good process and systems in place so that you can bring more people on. And so only when we were super intentional did we start to kind of go from 5 techs in 2009 to the 17 that we have today, and hopefully 20 by the end of the year. If I didn't know my numbers, I know that maybe, and I'm still forecasting, but I'm expecting this summer to be like every other summer since I've been in this ridiculous industry. It's going to be, 4 to 10 days out in some areas that we do service, that we just never ever have enough staff. When the heat comes and the teachers are home from school and the houses are selling and buying and all those reasons that make them people need to call us, we can never sustain enough staff. So only because we know our numbers do I believe strongly that we could take on 2 or 3 more techs and make the most of 2023. The trick is, can we do it?
And
Can I find the
projecting
tech?
that into 24, right? Because the
Well,
reality
that's
is
it.
you're not going to bring on more staff than you can handle in the slow
No,
times either,
no,
right?
I'm
Like,
actually late. I'm actually
yeah,
late on that, Zach. I
yeah,
mean, ASCII and a couple of things that happened in the company that kind of derailed me from setting goals based on our numbers. I'm now playing catch up in May and running ads and going to hire guys from scratch, knowing they're not going to be anything really profitable for us potentially even this year. And but I now I have 2 techs that are experienced reaching out to us, and we're just gonna have to like throw down some bucks if they turn out to be good people and bring them on with an incentive bonus that's really really attractive, so that I can hit this goal that I started late on, that I wanted to be prepared for the summer. You can't predict any of this. You can't forecast without strong numbers. You just
for
can't.
sure, for
And
sure.
you won't even want to forecast. You won't even want to, because it's almost like you'd be guessing in the dark. But once you know your numbers, you just feel more comfortable. You feel confident. And then you can start to dig in and call people like Zach and Dean Landers and just go, what do you think about this? Well, how many of these? Oh, this. And how much is that? And you have your numbers. Man, it's a lot of fun. So,
Well, and I want to hit on this, because you don't, again, like, you don't make big swings. You don't want to make
no.
massive pivots. This is a perfect example. You have Disney who just, like, they've been around forever. And they're like,
Yep.
yeah, we can do whatever we want. And they make these big, broad, sweeping changes. And this is their second round of employee layoffs.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
can't make these huge pivots, because when you make huge pivots, guess what happens? People get hurt.
Yeah.
If you're a
Yeah.
business leader, there is no excuse. Your butt gets fired for this.
Yeah, this looks like desperation. I mean, when you have to make
100%.
a decision like that, and then so for those who are loyal and have been there a long time, what are they thinking? Like,
Right.
wow, it's got to be pretty bad if they're going to pivot hard like this. Maybe I should start to look for somewhere else. And so laying off 7,000 and 3,000, maybe not having a huge impact in your business, but losing 100 of your rock stars because they think it's over at
Mhm.
Disney, that's where your tragedy is happening, is when you're going to lose your rock stars because they think the ship is sinking, right?
And I want to cover EJ popped in late, tuning in late.
Oh, oh wow, calling them
Uh,
out.
I want to hit this one. He doesn't want to grow. Bob doesn't want to grow much larger, and that makes perfect sense. But it does make him motivated to put all these systems in place. Here's the truth, Bob. Just because I know where you are, I'm gonna pick on you. But if you're getting ready to retire, if you're getting ready to sell, and this isn't just Bob, because I don't know how soon he's ready to, but you're getting to the point where this could be a reality in your life. Having the systems in place and having the metrics in place to be able to track this stuff, having the processes in place to train employees, guess what? That makes a business more.
Yeah,
It makes
yeah,
it so that people actually want to buy it, right? If
yeah,
you have something in place that's trackable,
yep,
great. Now all of a sudden your business is actually valuable.
yeah.
EJ, I've been watching the whole episode. Um,
No, no,
so
I like what you're saying. Like, Bob's meeting with a potential buyer, and he's not at work the whole day.
right.
Doesn't I don't need to be there. I've got people and I've got processes in place that it runs very well by itself. So very cool.
So EJ's question, why I was picking on him, what are the top 5 KPIs you recommend to start with? It's so subjective.
Yeah,
I mean, no two businesses are the same. In appliance repair, like, if you're not tracking calls complete and your walk rate, like, you're doing yourself a disservice. And if you're not tracking, what was the other one? You actually brought it up. Well, what are the 5 KPI? Well, like your 5 KPIs?
Well,
I know you said walks and
well, yeah, you have average per call, the amount of calls completed in a period of time, the revenue that they bring in, walks, pretty important, right? If you're, see, it is subjective, right? If EJ
right.
is mostly warranty and he's paying rates, then he just needs techs that can fix things fast and do it
Right.
well. We are a COD company. So we spend between $8,000 and $25,000 a month on average for AdWords and other advertising to make the phones ring. So if I have 7 CSRs answering the phone, but 20% or 15% are hanging up or going to voicemail, and we don't catch that customer, we paid for the phone to ring.
Mhm.
And so there's so many KPIs to track, and so you kind of got, to me, you have to group them. You have to have your support staff KPI, your technician KPI, and then you have probably your parts department has to be KPI, and then your company. Your company needs to be KPI. What are your goals? What are you what where can't you fall under or below, or where you strive to be? So company, I think your parts department, your office support staff, and your technicians. It's like 4 different KPI areas
Right.
with numbers inside of those.
And I think that's the best way. That's the best way to say that, because I mean, yeah, you can, like Paul brought it up: acquisition, retention, first call complete, state of service, avenue. I mean, like those are all things. That's all great, but like Doug is saying, like, where the heck do you want to go as a company? Who are you as a company? Like, what are you trying to achieve? What Doug is trying to achieve is different than what EJ is trying to achieve, is different than what Bob is trying to achieve, is different than what Joe is trying to achieve. It All of you have different companies, and so saying the top 5 KPIs, it's I mean, it's kind of crap, because it really is subjective depending on what your goals are. So the thing that I would start with is something that Doug and I hammer on all the time. What the heck do you want? What are your goals for your company? Get that on paper and then
And I
begin to
love,
track towards that.
and Zach, I love that because, again, thanks to you and stretching and growing my brain and reading, inspired. What what is action? Like, what are the 3 things it's known for? What's its DNA? It's the
Mhm.
molecules. And for a little while now, a month or two, just been sitting with this same day, next day. Paul knows this. Same day, next day company. That's what we are. That doesn't work in somebody who does warranty. That doesn't work in somebody who is, um, you know, 2 techs and authorized with a company that's going to send you way more leads. So same day, next day. That's what our goal is. And so I started to think about that, and I took one of my numbers, which is cancellation rates, and we do. Good answer. See, if you get EJ saying that, then you know you're doing something good. So we've been tracking weekly cancellation rates of customers booked because we're a same day, next day company. And we know that in the summer months, our cancellation rate can go from to 25 to even 30%. During COVID era, 2021, 35% of our customers canceled. When I share those numbers with people in Zooms and at ASTI and in different groups, people are like, oh my, what? Like, what's wrong with you? What's your number? It ain't like that. I don't know, my friend. We've been tracking this thing since the Dead Sea Scrolls, and we use our software system, and we have our own Excel spreadsheet, and we figure it out. And I know that 8 to 12% is normal. And when you look at the 8 to 12% of cancellations, started working again. We know
I
that
mean,
that can happen. The door was left open.
right.
Fixed it
User error.
themselves. Bought new. Right now, we know that every excuse or reason that someone gives us could be a little bit of a lie, but for the most part, if you just take the number for what it is, when you start to see found someone sooner, of the 30 that canceled, 10 of them are found someone sooner. That's a number that we can target on and work on and say, hey, this area of the state of Connecticut, we're booked out 2 weeks. Shocker. our cancellation rate is up to 28%, and almost all of them are in that area of the state. What are we going to do about it? That's where I'm now inspired to say that this summer comes. If I can get 2 or 3 more techs, why am I doing that? Am I doing it for money? That'd be nice. Am I doing that for our customers? Absolutely. But I'm doing that because my heart says we are a same day, next day company. And wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool to pull that off in the busiest time of the year? And you know what I got to think about after that, Zach? Is what do I do in January, February, March when I've got this many guys and I don't have enough work for them? We've never laid anyone off. We've never, made anyone go hungry. And so, it's fun. It's super fun. And so I'm hoping that I hit the target this year, that we do really well at nearly hitting same day, next day in the summer. And I'm well prepared to figure out what the heck I'm going to do with 20 techs when I only have work for 17 or 16. What that's going to do is propel me to think outside the box, the outside area that I would never go to if I didn't know my numbers and get geeked out by what we stand for as a company and what EJ stands for and what Bob stands for and everyone else, right? Thanks, Saul.
I mean, the reality is we're rooting for all of you guys to succeed, and that's why we're bringing this up. Like,
so free shipping from Marcone would help me a lot. You think you can work on that?
Do you remember those? You remember those? There's a time
but
shipping
you
wasn't
can't get, but I'm going to tell you something, Zach. There's no way you can get passionate. There's no way you can get excited. It's very hard to be motivated to forecast and to plan and to strive to hit goals if you don't know your numbers. Mm-hmm. And I know what that felt like. It almost feels like through the 90s and early 2000s, survival. Mm-hmm. We were in survival mode because we didn't really strive to share with the staff and our customers who we were. We were just losing people because they were uninspired or didn't like where they drove or the money they made. We were just losing. We were just maintaining. But find out what you're great at, man. And certainly don't pick mine. You don't have to. If you're a warranty guy, then figure out what gets you excited, and then get your employees excited and get your customers excited.
Love it. Yeah. There's no better way to end an episode than that passionate rant right there. Like that, if that doesn't inspire you into beginning to understand, first of all, who you are, what your goals are, and then second of all, to begin to track your numbers, I don't know what will. I mean, just Doug getting that amped up, like that's what it's all about. And that's why we're here every morning trying to encourage you and inspire you to the next level of growth, whatever it looks like, because you could be moving towards retirement. We want to inspire you to retire well, right? Like to enjoy the process. And I'm not picking on Bob. I'm just
Bob changed an engine or something, or rebuilt an engine last weekend. Like Bob's weird and crazy and cool, man. If you're not friends with Bob, you need to become friends with Bob. So different. How we're all so different, right?
Free ship. He doesn't know what free shipping means, Doug. He doesn't understand that terminology.
You don't speak English? Okay, I know how that goes. All right.
All right, guys, get out there, love your customers well, start tracking your numbers, and begin to shoot for the moon. We'll see you next time.
Have a great week, guys.